for the Wilbur McMahon School Committee Forum. This is sponsored by the Little Compton Parent Student Teacher Association. My name is Corey Martin, and along with Ruth Mayato, I'm the co-chair of the PST. We ask that all cell phones be silenced for the duration of the forum. And at this time, I will introduce our candidates. Ms. Jana Porter, Mr. Ed Bowen, Ms. Peg Bugara, and Mr. Joe Quinn. And now I will turn it over to Courtney Cray, our mediator for the evening.
Good evening. We'll start with the introductions, starting with Janet Porter, and we'll go down the line. So please give a short intro, include a brief personal background, and describe your experience or involvement with school and or educating groups that would enhance your ability to serve as a school committee member. And what are your top 3 objectives or priorities if elected?
Okay, thank you. Can I stand up?
Sure. It's up to you.
Okay. I think it's interesting that they gave the first segment to probably the oldest person up here, and I really should have more than 3.5 minutes because I've been working much longer than anybody else. That was supposed to be a joke.
I think I'm the oldest.
I have lived in Little Compton for 15 years, which I know makes me a relative newcomer. But I moved here from downtown Boston, and I immediately fell in love and absolutely committed to this place. I have 3 children and 5 grandsons, and I am committed to their education and very interested in it. My professional background is that I am a clinical social worker with an LICSW degree. I've worked in private practice, community mental health, schools, and I'm also an educator. And I have been a teacher in both public and private schools. I've taught 3rd grade, 7th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and also an administrator. I was a dean of students at a boarding school for 327 adolescents. I still hyperventilate when I think about that responsibility. And head of school at the Lexington Montessori School, which is a large, very well-established school outside of Boston with about the same population that Wilbur McMahon has. I'm also a consultant. I have consulted for the National Association of Independent Schools on diversity and on school governance, which I think is really important. The relationship between the administration and the school committee is an area of expertise for me, and one that I'm very interested in pursuing in this position. Important issues to me are, first of all, school culture. I think children learn best when they are in an environment where they feel heard, seen, understood, and welcomed, and safe. And that they know what the expectations are, where the bar is, and that it's predictable, and they know they'll have support in meeting it. I also really believe that adults set the tone for respectful communication in schools. I love the Wilbur McMahon School mission statement, which speaks to respectful communication. I don't think it's practiced enough. I think it needs to be from the top down, that from the board level right down to the kids. We need to respect, listen, welcome all voices, and be sure that we are attending to what we hear. Listen. My second major issue is that we need to be very clear that academic excellence is our priority, and by that I mean commitment to critical thinking, that children need to be challenged, they need to be curious, we need to welcome their curiosity, and we need to teach them to think critically, because the media that's coming at them is sound bites, and they don't know how to weigh that and measure that. So I also think academic excellence includes fostering the creativity of the amazing teachers that we have at McMahon, helping them be the best they can be, supporting them in being as creative as they can be. My third priority is for fiscal wisdom.
It's time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
From now on, if you kind of hear this, that means kind of wrap it up. All right? I don't mean to be. That's your 15-second warning. All right?
Ed?
Should we go sequentially?
Yes, for the intros.
I am Ed Bowen. My educational background is in philosophy. I have a degree in philosophy, which qualifies me to do manual labor. I have a nursery in town, plants, not kids, not well known in town, but curiously with a regional, national, to a lesser extent, international reputation. I think what it is that I would bring to the school committee is that I have a vested interest in the community. I'm a lifelong member of the community. I have children who are in the school system. I have nieces and nephews who are in the school system. I have friends whose children are in the school system. And I'm committed to education. I also think that it is important that I'm running as an independent. I had been on town boards before, which I think is an additional source of strength of knowing somewhat how boards process information and make decisions. But in the past, I had had party affiliations, and I think it tends to be counterproductive in a small town. I like the ability that I don't need to be liberal, I don't need to be conservative, I can be pensive and I can vote accordingly. And I think that that is what is needed, is genuine discussion and thoughtful processing of decisions on the school level. My primary objectives would be finding a principal who is committed to, genuinely committed to education, genuinely committed to the community. I think that there is no reason that Willard-Milne shouldn't be one of the top-ranked schools in the state. I know some might make the claim that it is already, but it seems to me as though it ought to be higher, and nationally, it seems as though all the elements are there for the school to be to provide a better level of education than it does. And I also think that it's important that we start looking for alternate sources of funding, perhaps to defray the cost, but one certainly that won't be increasing the tax base necessarily. As school, as the population declines with school-age children, I think coming up with ways of funding is more and more important. So those are what I think my strengths are and what my objectives are.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Good afternoon, or good evening. I have a master's degree in education from New State College. I have taught at Case High School in Swansea. I have taught at Rogers High School. I have taught at the middle school. I have taught at the elementary school. I am supervisor K through 12, retired from the Newport Public Schools. At one time, I had 8 schools, over 16 teachers under my direction. I was part of the leadership team for Rogers High School, which was a group of department heads who worked to develop programs for the high school, for the students. At the state level, I have been on the state level working in curriculum development, outcomes, goals, standards. At the Newport schools, I developed with partners a K-12 curriculum in health education and physical education. I'd really like to thank the community for the opportunity to have been on the school committee for 4 years. When I went in, I had these bright, shiny eyes, and I have learned since that there's a little bit more. So I bring the perspective of teacher, administration, and now school committee to a final wrap-up. And I think we've done some nice things. I was able to bring in $4,000 in grants to the recreation for the fields, and I was very happy to be part of that fund. And my 3 goals that I think are very important, they're very important to me because not only did my kids go to this school, but my grandkids go to this school. And you'll probably often hear me refer to them as my girls. So that's my grandkids. But I want to hire a new principal that's going to be with us and make such positive changes. I want to keep the programs we have because I think they're excellent, but I want to see if we can add to them. And when I'm looking in for a principal, is to see what kind of attitudes they have and what kind of possibilities they have to embellish what we already have. The second one is to keep offerings we have presently, even with the declining enrollment. We all know that we're facing that inability to offer what we want. I want to try and hold on to as much as we can because we have such great opportunities for our students. And lastly, I want to develop a budget. I'd like to be part of that budget development that will have priority to maintain the buildings and fields that we have now. I just took a walk around the track the other day. We are so lucky to have what we have. Our kids are so lucky. And I want to make sure that the budget is available. And just to wrap up, the most important thing is to improve curriculum. Our teachers are great, they work hard, but I really want to see the curriculum, anything we can do to help the teachers to develop that curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Joe?
Thank you. I've lived in Little Compton for 20 years. I'm married to Rita, who was a kindergarten and special ed teacher, and we've been married for 49 years. We have 3 children, 3 grandchildren. I received my bachelor's from St. Anselm College, and I graduated from Harvard Business School in their TUP program. I also took courses at Bridgewater State University and UMass Dartmouth. For 42 years, I taught honors Latin and English. And I was also a state-appointed mentor for first-year teachers. That's something that Massachusetts does because unfortunately, there are a number of teachers that after their first year move on. And so they need some of that kind of stuff. I've also taught courses, graduate courses, actually, at Mass Maritime Academy and at UMass Dartmouth. And served on the school committee for 9+ years. My 3 priorities really center around student performance and learning. My first one is I want to improve that. And the second and third is just to follow up along. I want to create fair budgets to support student performance and learning. And very important, we just finished spending approximately $12 million on a rehab of that building. Some of it, unfortunately, needed to be done because preventative maintenance was ignored. So I'd like to maintain and support preventative maintenance and improvements. There are things still yet to be done there that support student performance and learning. I suspect that you will find that there are a number of things we could do that were left off the list because the state simply wouldn't approve it. That would make for a better time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Courtney, I'm sorry. Can I just take 2 seconds to take a drink of water? We'll grab a few chairs for people that are standing so they're not here for the rest of the... Is that okay? Sorry.
Sure.
Take a drink of water. That way people...
Happy to take that one. Did you want to take them out of order?
Yes. Sorry.
My long long-term goals for Wilbur McMahon School is that it continues to exist, it continues to provide education, but provides it at a really high level. That it is in fact one of the best schools, if not the best in the state, and one of the best in the country. I think all of the elements that are necessary to achieve that are in place. Fleshing out the great steps that we've made with the new administration and coming up with a principal who is genuinely committed would be a long move that ball much further down the field. In 4 years, I hope that we have a student population that is roughly the same size as the population that we have now, and one that is testing, scoring higher on national tests than they are at the moment.
Right?
First of all, as a school committee, we operate under Chapter 16 of the Rhode Island State laws. So the school committee duties are very much spelled out. Our basic duties are to do with policies and to support the administrative staff in what we are doing in the school. I came in with glorious ideas that I could affect education in a more straightforward manner. And I found out that's not how things work. Typical education, it takes a while to get things accomplished. So that being the case, I do have goals that I'd like to see accomplished. One of them, of course, is the idea of the principal, so that you understand just how critical a principal is to the school. They will make or break what is going on. So to me, that's very important. He will be able to support teachers, she will be able to support teachers, and the curriculum will be on their shoulders to work at and develop and create new ideas along with the staff. So the principal has to be a shining star for everyone to look to. I know that's sort of a tough call, but I think that person has to be somebody that will be right up there. The other things that I would like to see is the diversity of the programming, so that we have such a great opportunity with our students. Like at here, I want to see it greater. I want to see us that top of the mountain. We may not be able to reach it, but that doesn't mean we can't strive for it. And so that's what I'm looking for in the programming that we'll be continuing to offer. And I believe it's very important that we do maintain the buildings and fields, because our school is the community hub. We have all kinds of events here, and if we don't maintain it, then we don't do any benefit to our community, to our school. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joe?
Thank you. As I look at or think about the long-term goals for Wilbur McMahon, I'd certainly like to make sure that we incrementally improve student performance and learning. It doesn't happen all at once. It takes time, and over the long term, we should be able to do this. I also want continuous high-performing teachers and administration, because those two components are incredibly important. We need a quality, fun, safe environment and an experience for our kids. They deserve nothing less. We need to also be fair to both the townspeople and the school district from a budget point of view, because that's how we fund all the things that we want to do. And I'd like to make sure that we have a schedule that provides a rich learning experience. Scheduling is really important. That's a incredible task that a principal has spends most of the summer doing. I'd like to also make sure that policies that address the needs of students and the school district continue to be implemented. Chapter 16 tells us what the duties, roles, and rights of the school committee are, and setting policy is one of them. And we need to have contracts with employees that are fair to both the town and to the employees. In 4 years, we will still have a vibrant, excellent school, but the enrollment will essentially continue to shrink. There's no no doubt in my mind that there'll be less full-time teachers and more part-time teachers. And there will be fewer two-grade classes. But there's opportunities, even under those circumstances. We can still be very, very, very good. Thanks.
Thank you. Jen, please.
Yes. I think the most important thing is to protect what we have, first of all. We have a wonderful school here. We have hardworking, creative teachers, terrific environment. I think we need to guard that and protect it as we move into the future in an era of high accountability, testing, core curriculum, all of those things. We need to protect what we have. I also think that we don't have to have a declining population. I think there are options for that. I think by improving our school even better than it is now, we can attract families to live here. And that may sound naive and optimistic. I know that I'm new to this board, but I've been on others, and I think it is absolutely necessary and very possible for us to do that. This school should be a #1 top-tier school. We have all the makings for that. Not only a wonderful school and great teachers, but we have an outdoor laboratory around us in this town. Our children should be out at Simmons Mill. They should be on Dundry Brook Trail. They should be investigating, curious, learning about their environment, and I would love to see that extend. I do think that we can attract families to live here if we are a top-tier school, and I am very interested in the school board's decision to try to look at tuition-paying students to come here.
Thank you very much. Okay, our second question will begin with pay. This one is, last spring, the student committee struggled with a vote on whether to permit or deny concealed weapons in school. Where do you stand on this issue of concealed weapons in schools?
Well, in my opinion, there should be no such thing as weapons in school, whether it's a gun, a knife, or anything else. What you had was a presentation of a non-gun proposal. I worked on the policies for zero tolerance for the no gun penalties here in Little Compton. I did not support that resolution because I felt as though you're beating a dead horse. We have already taken a very strong position. We have written the policies in a very strong manner, and I didn't feel as though I have a right as a school committee person to dictate what is and what could be interpreted as a violation of Second Amendment rights. I believe people that wish to carry can carry. That they have their permits and they're legal, but you don't carry in school. If somebody is driving by or lives across the street, I don't want to be imposing our rules on them because they have a gun. But in our school, I don't want anything. I firmly, and I have 2 granddaughters here, so I do not want them at risk. And I think the evacuation policies that we have been developing and that we have practiced are very good. But I think those policies can be reviewed and revamped. I think we can always look for an additional way to protect our children if, God forbid, something like that would ever happen. So make no mistake, I am not for any type of weapon in school. I do abide by the Second Amendment. I do believe that people should carry if that's their choice, but I do not believe in school that should be the situation.
Thank you very much. Joe?
Thank you. There was not a vote on whether to permit or deny concealed weapons in school. It was a vote to support a resolution of another town, and there were problems with that resolution. Some of the terms in that particular resolution would have made it such that someone lawfully and rightly driving by the school with a weapon, going hunting or target practicing would be in violation of the particular resolution. That's, hunting is part of the gun. The whole thing was truly much to do about nothing and unnecessary for that reason, because as Peg said, there was a policy. So there'd be no doubts, I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. Unlike probably most in this room, I've held permits to carry in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire. I hunt and I competitively trap shoot, and that's part of the reason why I have those permits. Only law enforcement officers should have weapons in the school, period. That's my belief. And I don't think it needs to go any further than that, to be honest with you. That said, acting on the resolution was truly unnecessary. When I was on the school committee, I supported and voted for the policy that Peg was referring to, that essentially said, we're a weapon-free zone. And that particular policy says allowing weapons in schools is not okay unless by law enforcement. The policy is mission accomplished.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people in this room know where I stand on this issue. I was the one who presented the resolution to the school committee and to the town council. I'm a member of the Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence, not against guns, against gun violence. 39 states in this country prohibit concealed carry weapons from schools. Rhode Island is not one of them. Rarely is a concealed carry weapon related death related to self-defense. In the vast majority of cases, it's an accident. Our police chief, Buzzy Marion, said that the last thing he needs is to walk into a school and see multiple people with guns and not know who the enemy is. The resolution does not require people to not drive by the school. There's no drive-by thing in the resolution. It does require that people who are on school buses, school grounds, in classrooms, not carry concealed weapons. I think this is a no-brainer. I don't understand why all the hoopla about it. We don't want guns with kids in our schools, period.
Thank you very much. And Ed.
And I understand that the question is to a certain extent misleading, and that really it was a vote on pending legislation up in the General Assembly. But I think without question, with the exception of law enforcement, that weapons concealed or revealed just do not belong in schools.
Thank you very much. Yeah, our third question, we will begin. Good job. I'll make sure I got this right. The third question is, the school committee has multiple constituencies to consider: students, families, staff, townspeople, when making decisions that affect the school. Sometimes these groups have competing needs. Can you give an example and explain how you would go about seeking consensus in a situation of competing needs?
I think so. The first time I thought about that question, I thought of two things. One goes back a number of years, 8 or 9 years, and that was the outsourcing of the school buses. Let me tell you, that was a very interesting time. The second one, is more current, was the Portsmouth High School contract. And that ended up being an interesting process. I was involved in selecting and negotiating the 10-year contract that we have with Portsmouth. Some parents, students, and townspeople were critical of our process. They wanted us to just simply go pick Portsmouth. And that would have been a horrible, horrible conclusion to go that direction. Confidentiality and tactics muzzled us to a certain extent. So we couldn't really answer at that point why we were doing what we were doing, because we also didn't want to get back to the process we were going through. We sent out RFPs to 3 communities, Portsmouth, Middletown, and Tiverton. And they were very specific RFPs. A lot of information about, their schedules, their course offerings, their AP offerings, their test scores, the kind of activities they have, all that kind of stuff. Size of the population of the school, and all that. We allowed the 3 to make a formal presentation and answer questions. The public was invited to that. Unfortunately, very few showed up. That was very unfortunate. We requested, obviously, per pupil cost and any subsequent increases in future years, because we were looking for a 10-year contract. We knew competition would get us the best price. Quite frankly, during the process, I'm going to pass on that then, and it did. We're paying right now around $9,500 per student plus busing. It's great for taxes, it's great for students. If you want to take the Woburn Command cost per pupil and compare it to the $9,500, we're above $20,000 at Woburn Command. So you can see the good deal that came our way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I actually find this somewhat of a curious question. My experience of 40 years in education has taught me that we always have to be guided by the best interests of the children. And that's why I'm here. I want to be an advocate for the kids. There's an inherent tension always between competing interests, whether it's teachers, parents, even the needs of kids can be contradictory, as was indicated in the date of the start of school this year. But I think we have to be guided always by what is going to serve our children best. I do think that we can build consensus around decisions in a better way than we do. And I think Dr. Power has really set a new standard in that area, and I'm really pleased to see it. So that we really reach out and educate people about why we're doing what we do, why we're voting the way we vote. Here's the information that underscores our position. Here is the educational research that informs why we have voted the way we have. And you may disagree with us, but at least you know that we have done our homework. I think that's very important.
Thank you very much. Ed?
I want to say that I think it is exceedingly important. It's imperative for any candidate, certainly for any office holder, to have an open door, open email, open telephone policy. I think it's incumbent on us to certainly solicit, especially opinions which might be contrary to our own. Having said that, though, I don't know that the duty of an office holder is necessarily to build consensus. I think it is to come up with an informed opinion. To a great extent, there's an overlapping area of interest, and that it does require that other opinions are solicited. But ultimately, an office holder needs to make the best decision that he or she thinks he or she is making. And I think that the real trick is, when consensus can't be achieved, because what happens when you've got two ideas that are in conflict, and there isn't any way to build consensus. So you have to make the best decision that you can possibly make, and learn how to disagree without being disagreeable. I think is really what's important, and be able to continue to work together as a body, as a group, and perform what it is that your charge is as a group. Being able to entertain a difference of opinion, but not have it cripple the body and imperil whatever decisions it might be able to otherwise make.
Thank you very much. And Faye?
Thank you. I see things a little bit differently in education. I see a wheel, and our student is the hub. And all teachers, administrators, community, school committee, we're all parts of that wheel. But our focus has to be on our students. I know what I would like to do with Common Core and Park, and most people know what I'd like to do with Common Core and Park. I'm straight up front. However, Joe and I, we tend to disagree. But as Ed was saying, we disagree with respect. And I think that's what's important, is that our focus is the child. What is the best thing we can do for our children? Not just my granddaughters, not just them, but for every child. When I go into the school and I look at those kids, and I think what gifts they are, and how malleable they can be, and what they will offer to us in later life. So that bothers me. I don't want to see politics in education. I don't, like everybody, he's an independent, I'm a Republican, you're a Democrat. I don't want to see that. I want to see that all of us work together for the child. That's the only reason for being here, is to be here for the child. I've had 44 plus years of education. I don't need anything else right now, except to be able to give of my time, my effort, my experience, my knowledge. The only other thing I'd like to say is, when we've done different things, when we hired a superintendent, we did one, and there was a lot of consternation. They came back and they told us we should have done this, we should have done that. So we said, okay. So the second time around, we had the community offer questions. And then we interviewed the superintendent candidates with those questions. When we did it in a very open way, we only got about 5 people to come. But we listened when we heard what their concerns were, and then we opened it up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our final question this evening will be from Jenna. And it is, what are the strengths of Wilbur McMahon School? Do you see any areas in need of improvement? If so, please discuss specific changes you would support.
Let me start by saying I think this is a wonderful school. I think it has a terrific mission, which I read through again today. I think it's a place where kids come, for the most part, joyfully. I think the teachers are incredibly talented. I think one of our strengths that I know is very controversial is our small class size. There is a tremendous amount of research that has been done on the relationship between class size and not only academic achievement, but health, going to college, making a good living, and even length of life. Believe it or not, being in a school with small classes extends your life by 2 years. And if anybody wants the research to back that up, I'm happy to provide it. So I think that's something that I really want to protect. Our small class sizes and the creativity that allows teachers. I also think it's financially in our interest to have small classes. I think it protects us from, crazy special education costs. I think it's by far the way to go and one of our greatest strengths. I see our communication here at Wilbur McMahon improving in leaps and bounds. I think the recent newsletter that came out via email was terrific. I didn't get a copy, but I wish I did, and I'd love to know how to sign up for that. I think every person in this town should be a stakeholder in the school. This is our center. It is our heart. This is where we raise our children. This is where we create community. This is where parents meet each other. We need to make this the vibrant heart that it is and bring people who don't have children in the school into the party. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ed.
I agree with Janet to the extent that I think that the relatively small student body is a great source of strength, and it allows for great possibilities of education that might be hampered if the student body were larger. I think it's an incredible strength that the school has, and I think that we're a relatively affluent community, and the school seems to have broad support and funding is an incredible strength. And I would like to continue to foster that. What I would like to see is greater involvement on the part of faculty and staff, and somehow making, and it's not saying that they're not involved, but speaking earlier, you know, I noted with a certain sense of irony, and I asked Mrs. Conley that this is the Little Compton PST, the Parent Student Teacher Association, yet there is no designee from the Teachers Union to the PST. There's no official designee. There may be members who are, but I think that having, the more the school becomes a community school, the stronger it gets, and the more we can encourage faculty, administration, staff to be members of the community, even if it were, you know, somehow possible to facilitate that financially on some level, it would be a stronger institution. I see McGregor's out in the audience. I see Mrs. Moniz, I see Mrs. Cumley. Those, I think, are great sources of strength when the teachers, especially if we can find teachers and administration who have who have school-age children, and then they really have a vested interest in making it the strongest institution I think can be as well. And so that would be something that I would like to see if there were a way to improve.
Thank you. Okay.
I think one of our greatest strengths is the fact that we are such a small community. And basically, you can say to Ed, you know so-and-so, and I'll bet you within 3 people, not even 6, he'll know somebody. There's those connections. I think those connections are important. Because when I grew up, if you went down the street and you did something wrong, your neighbor hollered at you and said, I'm going to tell your father, or I'm going to tell your mother. And it's, at Wilbur School, it's sort of the same thing. I watched the other day, as the students were dismissing, and an older student came up to one of their former teachers and just gave him a hug. And the teacher just responded. To me, that's the safety and the security that our school offers. It's not only the programming, but it's the interpersonal dynamics that the teachers have with the students. Besides that, it's something that often gets overlooked when we talk about schools, is non-certified personnel. Our secretaries, our teacher aides, our janitors are all a very vital part of that school. And we're lucky because if they see a kid and the child is hurt, they're there to help. And as our children grow, they know that there's more than one set of eyes on them. Because anyone in school will say, I'll tell your mother, I'll tell you, or in my case, I'll tell your Nana. So, but I think that's important. The other part I think is very important is the community support that we do get. A lot of this community is on retirement, so that their affluence is not what it once was. And yet, time after time, although they grumble maybe, they still step up and they help us with the budget. And that to me is an incredible strength. Our programming, our teachers, the ability, the only thing the improvement I'd like to see is the ability for our teachers to feel comfortable enough with Common Core that they start to bring in their own personality again. I know it's been tough for them because there's so much they have to teach. But slowly they're starting to come in, and this is just being a dynamic year. So I'm very happy, and I'd like to see that continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joe.
Thank you. Wilbur and McMahon is Little Compton's gem. I'm not going to spend any more time on Wilbur and McMahon's strengths. I've certainly made reference to a number of them, and so have the other 3. Let's take a look, though, at some areas of improvement. When we did the building rehab project, one of the things that I talked about is that we've got a perfect opportunity with the new library and some of the facilities to open up school at night for adults. Art classes, pottery, photography, computer classes, reading clubs, all sorts of things like that. And what's even more valuable because I think would have a lot of interest, is that also now they become part of Wilbur McMahon. Later on, when you're looking at your budget process, and you're looking at support for X, Y, and Z, you'll find it'll be an easier road to get down. The other thing that to me has been disturbing, probably 9.5, 10 years, is the Rhode Island State testing situation. I'm not a fan of NECAP, and I'm not a fan of POC. And yet, what we did is we joined with New Hampshire and Vermont. Why we would do that, I have no idea. When our contiguous neighbor has the highest performing students in the United States using MCAS and their curriculum. And I'm thinking, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let's just go pirate it. Or join with them and give them some money and have it be done right. Because Massachusetts competes with the rest of the industrial nations. Rhode Island doesn't. We need a testing system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Little Compton Wilbur McMahon Parent Student Teacher Association and the community, I thank you very much for your time and thank you for coming down this evening. Thank you.
If I may, Courtney, may I just say, I really want to thank everybody here for coming, because it's really, you took time out of your day to listen to the four of us, and you should be applauded for coming and taking the time to know us, so thank you very much.
If we could have you stick around until, like, for 10 minutes, if people have some questions, there's refreshments here, please help yourself if you don't mind. Come down.